Barrett and Hill will be arriving late.
Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest from the councillors? None? Okay. Minutes. We have published the minutes of the July meeting, not the September meeting. So I'll take the minutes at the next meeting. Chair's announcements. I've no announcements, except that if there is a fire alarm, we need to leave the building and we congregate on the corner by BB's. And we'll have a look there. Public speakers, you have 3 minutes to address the committee. In front of me, there are some traffic lights on the floor. Green is you're okay to go. Amber is you've got 30 seconds left. Red means your 3 minutes are up. And therefore, we'll ask you to stop speaking, but remain seated in case the committee have any questions for you. Okay? So we'll move on to item 5, applications for determination. And the first application is 6 Grovelands, Daventry. Eamon, this is yours, I believe.
Thanks, Chairman. As the application description shows, this is an application for proposed dwelling within the limits of Daventry town itself. The application site sits in a residential area. The report considers the relevant planning issues, including the relevant policies in the development plan, as well as objections or concerns raised by local residents. You'll see that we've assessed the application in terms of impact on residential amenity, impact on highway safety, the overall character of the area, and ultimately judged that the application is effectively a subdivision of an existing large plot that will not adversely impact on the amenity of adjoining neighbours or highway safety, and accordingly recommending the application be approved, Chairman. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have one public speaker on this. Councillor Dabbs, would like to come and address the committee, please. Just remind you have 3 minutes to address the committee. Just say who you are, who you represent, and then your 3 minutes will start from there.
Press the button to speak.
If you press the button at the bottom of your light, well, that's it.
My light comes on. Good evening, everybody. My name's Stephen Dabbs. I'm a Daventry Town Councillor, and I represent the council tonight. And just to start off, to be very clear, the Town Council object to this development. I think that's a useful plan that you've put on the board. All members can read the Daventry Town Council's objection, so I don't pretend to read it out to everybody's enjoyment. I shall try and add a little bit of narrative to it. The Town Council is very familiar with this cul-de-sac development. It's several reasonably large houses set out, as you can see on the plans there, with generous plots and with garages, and I think that's quite an important point. This new proposal is totally not in keeping with its surrounding. It is being crammed onto an existing plot. You can see that a garage has had to be removed, and then this other property is then sitting on at the side. And you can see from the block plans how this radically changed the density of the area in comparison with its neighbours. We consider this to be overdevelopment. The overdevelopment of the site indeed necessitates the removal of a garage and does not allow for a garage on the new property. That's not how this estate is designed, hence the new property is not in keeping with the existing properties, and number 6 also changes in style in comparison to its neighbours. Onto parking, which has been mentioned, to which Highways originally objected. Then plans would change from a 4-bed to a 3-bed house, changing one of the bedrooms to a study room, suggesting then that this only requires the 2 car parking spaces that you see there. That's probably fair enough. What I would point out essentially is I could see that there's a great danger in approving this as a 3-bedroom place. You look at the plans, you can see that the wall in the bedroom has moved slightly. I'd like to know if members unfortunately do grant approval on this, as to what precautions the planning office could put in to make sure that that bedroom wall will be as it is, that the study will be a small size and it will remain a 3-bedroom house, because I see a great danger in you just pass this and all of a sudden the building is done to the original plan, you have a 4-bedroom house and we end up with a parking problem. And obviously if it was a 4-bedroom house, permission would not have been granted. that's about me done.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention.
Just stay seated there. I'll just ask the committee for any questions. Okay, Councillor Russell.
Evening. Thank you for addressing the committee. You say that you don't want this to be a four-bedroom property because of parking issues. We have a family next door to where I live, and they have 2 children, and each child has got their own car, as does the mum and dad. So that's 4 cars within the family context. What's going to stop a family doing that?
Well, absolutely. I think what I was looking at is the provisions from highways saying that a 3-bedroom house only needs 2 parking spaces, which I possibly wouldn't agree with, but a 4-bedroom house would need 3, and it patently hasn't got space for 3. And I see that there's a danger that this slips into a 4-bedroom development despite the plans and the changes and so on.
Even while it's maintained as a 3-bedroom,
It's
there
won't
could
have
still
enough
be 4
space.
cars there.
Yeah.
You can't legislate
No,
against
I
that.
don't disagree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Russell. Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anything you want to come back on there, Eamon?
No, Chairman, it's fine. I'll leave it with members.
Okay. Any questions to Eamon? No? Any comments? No comments? No questions? Oh, Cecile.
No comment, and we don't know the estate, but I know Daventry. The parking, yes, you have the garages and so on, but when you read the report, I cannot see a reason to go against officer advice. Yes, they can have 3 cars, they can have 4 cars, but that is not a planning reason. So therefore, I will go with officer advice, and I will propose that we go with officer advice.
Councillor Irving Smith is proposing we accept the officer's recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Yes. I'm happy. Oh, Peter's going to second. Councillor Matton seconds. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favour. Against? 1 against. No abstentions. So that application is passed. So moving on to item 5B, which is 5 Linton Avenue, Kingsthorpe. This is over to Nathan to present.
Thank you, Chair. So the application I will be presenting is the proposed change of use of 5 Linton Avenue, Northampton, from a dwelling to a children's care home. Change the slide. Thank you. I'll begin by addressing the principle of development. The proposed development at 5 Linton Avenue, the change of use of the site from a C3 dwelling to a C2 care home is deemed to maintain a residential use and is not deemed to be of a scale that will significantly reduce the supply of housing within West Northamptonshire. As a result, the principle of development is deemed to be acceptable, subject to the following material concerns: impact on local character, residential amenity, neighbour amenity, parking and highway safety. The first one I will address is the impact on the local character. According to policy Q1 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2, development should contribute to a high quality design and promote a strong sense of place. As previously mentioned, the proposed change of use maintains the residential nature of the street. Additionally, as there are no physical alterations proposed, the visual appearance of the street scene remains unchanged. Consequently, the proposed development is deemed to have no material impact on the local character and therefore calls it policy Q1 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2. In terms of residential amenity, policy Q2 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2 requires new development to provide and protect a high standard of amenity. The proposed care home will consist of 5 bedrooms, all of which are deemed to be of a sufficient size and be served by adequate levels of outlook, daylight and sunlight. The shared living spaces offer a combined area of circa 52.7 metres squared, which is deemed to be of a sufficient size to offer a high level of amenity. Furthermore, the outdoor space is measured at 122 metres squared. And
Nathan, it's good to stop there. Can you just put your mic on?
Oh.
That's it, lovely, thank you. Sorry, thank you.
Yes, the outdoor space is measured at 122 metres squared and is therefore of a sufficient size to offer room for informal play and other outdoor activities. Overall, the proposed development is deemed to offer a high standard of residential amenity. Now, regarding the impact on neighbour amenity, policy Q2 of the Northampton Local Plan applies again. Because there are no physical alterations, there will be no impact on neighbouring amenity in terms of overlooking, loss of privacy, overshadowing and loss of outlook. The likely comes and goes of the future occupants, staff and visitors is deemed to be in line with a typical 5-bed residential property. Consequently, the proposed development is not deemed to create a detrimental level of additional noise or disturbance. Moving on to the parking and highway safety. Policy MO2 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2 and paragraph 115 of the NPPF state development should only be refused on highway grounds if the development has a severe impact. To help you understand of the current situation, here is a collection of images taken on separate site visits, one completed by myself in April 2024 and the other completed by the Highways Officer in 2024. So it is appreciated Linton Avenue has a historic parking capacity issue. However, as this application is for a change of use, it would be unreasonable to expect this application to solve this historic issue. The determination of this application should only relate to a comparison between the existing use and the proposed use. In order to make this comparison, the Northamptonshire parking standards provide evidence-supported figures. In line with this document, as a 5-bed dwelling, 5 Linton Avenue is deemed to have a parking demand of 3 plus 1 visitor, so i.e. 4 spaces. In comparison, the proposed development will have a regular parking demand of 3, with 2 members of staff and a manager on site, and an occasional demand of 4, 2 members of staff, a manager, a part-time member of staff or a visitor. It is appreciated that a worst case scenario may demand 5 or 6 spaces if it's poorly managed. However, it is deemed this occurrence is not over and beyond a C3 dwelling, as on occasion a C3 dwelling may also have a similar demand, i.e. when a personal event such as a birthday is happening. Consequently, the proposed development is deemed to be of an even comparison to the existing use and is therefore in accordance with the Local Plan Part 2. To summarise what has been stated, the proposed development has no material impact on the local character, offers a high standard of residential amenity, has no adverse impact on neighbourhood amenity and does not severely increase the parking demand of the site to a level that would have a detrimental impact on highway safety. As a result, it is proposed for approval. We're recommending for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 3 speakers on this, so Tom Chappell, do you want to come forward? Have a seat and just have 3 minutes, say who you are, who you represent, and then your 3 minutes will start, and just keep an eye on the traffic lights. Okay, thank you.
So I'm Tom Chappell, I'm a resident of Linton Avenue.
Thank you very much, so 3 minutes.
Okay. In the summer we were made aware of a planning application for a residential children's home at 5 Linton Avenue. This came as a surprise to residents, as several people had been rather disingenuously told by the buyer that the property was going to be rented to a family. Thereafter, the property had, very cynically in our view, been developed in 2 stages. Firstly, into a 5-bedroom home, which had a few objections based on concerns that the property would become an HMO. After this initial build was completed, another planning application was submitted requesting a change of use to a residential care home. It has clearly always been the intention to develop this property for residential care. Local residents can testify to having seen commercial grade fittings and electrical systems being installed right from the start of the initial development. It is difficult not to feel that the owners have gamed the planning system in this regard and been dishonest on their planning application. When the planning application was submitted for change of use, many residents were against the proposal. 57 objections were submitted, which demonstrated the strength of feeling. The Parish Council has also voted to oppose it. The company's planning application contains numerous falsehoods and risible assertions, such as stating that a car can be parked in the garage or that staff will use the very infrequent local bus service. We residents stand by the objections we raised about the unsuitability of our quiet, family-orientated street for an establishment like this. Valid points were raised about traffic, parking issues, safety, noise and antisocial behaviour, as well as loss of amenity. We still stand by these issues. Issues will inevitably arise in the future. This company is a London-based business who already have several properties within the Kingsthorpe area. They clearly like the area and the type of homes that are available. These properties with room for enlarging are available at a fraction of the price of similar properties where the company is based. If you read the company's covering letter to their planning application, you might think that they're a benevolent organisation. A director has a background in social work. There is mention of charitable organisations and support from the local police. But clearly, the company's priority is to make large profits from placing problematic teenagers into redevelopment family dwellings at huge expense to the taxpayer. There was also apparently no obligation on their part to house local children. We know that the company's other property, metres from Linton Avenue, houses people from the Greater London area. To suggest that this application will benefit the local community is false. The company already has several properties within a very small area in Kingsthorpe, only one of which is currently in use. If there is such a need for these homes, which I believe the company alludes to in its application, why has its property at Greenhills Road stood empty for such a long time? If all these properties were occupied, it would be reasonable to anticipate an impact on the community. There is also the fact that another family dwelling is lost and the character, affecting the character of the area. This care home will also be sited next to a nursery for under fives. In July this year, Westmoreland and Furness Council described a similar situation as likely to lead to adverse impact on amenity arising from noise disturbance and antisocial behaviour. This proposal was described on the BBC website as totally inappropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Stay there. We'll see if there's any questions for you. Any questions? No? Okay. Oh, yes, Councillor Russell.
Hello, thank you for coming here tonight. I always feel a bit queasy when applications come before the planning committee where people speak against the possibility of a comfortable family-style home for vulnerable children, and I'm assuming that's the property, that's the purpose of the property. And I'm not at all sure that this isn't a sort of NIMBY kind of situation. It looks like a large property. We've been assured in the past that the manager will always be on site. And the police have said, if we look at the objections here, the police have said that that they note that the applicant has other similar establishments, is registered with Ofsted and works closely with Northampton's Children's Commissioning Team. I'm not closely involved with the commissioning team, but I do hear and see some of the minutes from the sort of situations that our children are in, and I feel very unhappy that children, vulnerable children, may be denied.
Is there a
So
question,
much
Councillor Russell?
Is there a question? Yes.
Are you asking if I'm a
Why-
NIMBY?
Why are you objecting to this?
Well, I
know
think
you've
I've been
just
quite
read
clear
this
why I've
out.
objected.
Yeah.
I just spent 3
That's
minutes.
my question. That's my question.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments there, Councillor Russell.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Dee Dawson, would you like to come next, please? And again, you've got 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you.
If the microphone goes off, because sometimes it does sort of time itself out, just
Yeah.
press the button and
Okay.
the mic will come back on. It's just so people watching on YouTube can be able to hear you.
Yeah, that's no problem. Right, thank you very much. I'm Dee Dawson and I'm a resident of Linton Avenue. The main reason I object to the planning application is on safeguarding grounds. I strongly believe that this is not the right location for a children's home, as it will be situated, as we've already currently said, next door to a childcare facility. As a professional who works with children, I fully understand that children's homes are needed, but I also know that we have a duty to safeguard our children. The change of use could lead to adverse impacts on local amenity arising from noise, disturbance and antisocial behaviour. In an educational setting, you would not place under fives next to a secondary school children, as this would be highly inappropriate. In this situation, the gardens run alongside each other and the passageway to number 3 and number 5 are linked. The first floor bedrooms look out onto the garden of number 3 and the play equipment that those children will be using. When I looked into this further, as it concerned me, I found that a similar situation had occurred in Cumbria, but the council had rejected the plans due to concerns about location. It is reported on the 3rd of July 2024 that it was turned down due to concerns about the first floor bedroom window overlooking the patio of neighbouring children's childcare facility. With this in mind, I would question why West Northampton County Council would not see this as an issue if other councils in the country do. The change of use was put into building control on the 17th of the 8th of 23 before the work was started on the house in October last year. It was to form a children's home. It clearly stated that, with the date of the 26th of the 3rd of 24 in brackets, and then the planning went in on the 16th of the 4th, 2024. So my point is, in August 2023, it was known that this house was going to be extended to form a children's home, not a residential home. I question why at that point the local amenities around it were not looked into to see if this was a suitable location. I feel if planning is passed, then we are failing our safeguarding systems for both of those establishments with our children in it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just stay there. See if there are questions. Councillor.
Do we have a plan? Because you say the school is very close by.
It's
So where is the school?
so it's the childcare. So if you go back to,
Thank you.
don't know. So it's number 3. So it is on. Looking at that, it'd be on the right hand side, and the passageway, as I say, it's a shared passageway between number 3 and number 5 because they are the 2 properties that are not attached in the semi-detached locations.
So,
Yeah, sorry, the other way around. Yes, so on the left.
So the house next to number 3 is a school.
So the house next to the proposal number 5, number 3 is a childcare facility. It's for the under 5s.
And it is, sorry to,
Yeah, no,
is it registered?
yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Check, what's the name of the school?
I don't actually know the name of the school. Don't know who, but
So it's more a nursery.
it's a childcare, isn't it? It's a childcare. It's not a school. It's a childcare business for the under 5s.
Is that a local one, or is it run by somebody such as the people who put in this application?
No, it's a private. It's just it's a private childcare in.
And what are the hours? Do you know the hours of that? Is it?
I would roughly say from where I leave to go to my workplace, it's from about 8 because it's obviously catering for children who, parents are working till about 4, 5.
So it's a day school?
It's a daycare, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Rubens, want to come and address the committee, please?
Evening, everybody. So Councillor Sam Rumans, one of the ward members for Kingsthorpe North Ward, speaking to object to the application. 2 key points that I would like to go on. One is material planning. The other is probably patently not, but I think it's relevant. So the first point is on highway safety and on parking. There is obviously a change to the use of the property, and I know that there's not an objection from highways, and there's the talk of that supposedly there's an acceptable amount of provision for the number of parking spaces needed or parking provision needed for this size of property. However, this is going to be changing from being a residential site where there are the typical normal amount of movements that you would get from a residential property to being something that's going to be a working building where potentially we obviously don't know exactly what the situation of the individual children in the building is going to be, but with up to 4 children, potentially significant needs, there could be people coming to and from this significant times a day and all sorts of things. So the reference earlier to if there are a family event at the house that could overwhelm it, one-offs, yes, but this is something that could be happening every week. And for anyone that knows Linton Avenue, the pictures maybe didn't quite do it justice, but that road, every time I drive up it, and I've got friends up there, is packed. So once people are back home from work or anything like that, the road is absolutely packed. It is a complete nightmare to turn a car in it, to constantly get blocked on it, going up and down. You can see cars parking all at the verges up and down, and obviously that looks like it's in the middle of the day. So I have huge concerns about turning with additional vehicles, and I have no doubt that there will be more vehicles using this property after the change of use. The second part to it actually is then, because of the additional vehicles, at the end of the road with the junction with the Harbour Road is one of the most dangerous junctions that you can come across. There are a number of accidents that have happened recently that you may have seen about in the news just by the White Hills pub, which is literally just a few metres away. And there's an issue with people coming down the hill at speed. And to be honest, I nearly had a crash the other day where someone in front of me nearly didn't stop into someone because it's so difficult to see there. So I have huge highways concerns about this on the extra number of vehicles. Second part is just on the use of it being a children's home in general. And this isn't about objecting to the use of it for that. I think the issue that we seem to be having with these types of applications is the inability for the council to work with applicants to try and put the provision in the right place. And there's obviously a significant change that has just happened in policy terms at West Northants, where to try and provide better care for children in West Northants and in Northamptonshire, we're looking to buy up properties in consultation with councillors and residents, and that's existing and potentially new properties. And I think that provides a material change to the situation around the pressure that I suspect the committee may feel in wanting to approve more provision through private providers like this. So I think the situation with it is changing, and I think that's a relevant point to be aware of. Not that I need to remind anyone, but I just wanted to mention that as a key point. So yeah, that's all from me.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Just remain seated, see if anyone's got any
Yeah.
questions. Councillor Russell.
Thanks for coming here tonight. The police, sorry, not the police, highways have not raised any objection to this application. So if they're confident, I know exactly the junction you're talking about, and it is difficult to actually see either way, but highways are not objecting, so...
They're not objecting, but what they're effectively saying is because the situation is already so bad, they think it won't materially make a difference to the already ridiculously bad situation. So what this is going to do is provide more vehicles using this on a more regular basis in an already dangerous situation. So this is going to make something that's already bad worse. They're just saying it's not materially going to make it massively worse. So I just can't see the logic behind the approval from Highways.
That's not what they're saying. They're saying that they do not believe, Highways does not believe that this proposed level of usage would result in an undue impact upon the local highway. So they know what the highway is doing, they know what usage there is, and they're saying that this property won't increase it. I'm not arguing.
No, I get it. I totally get it. No, I get it. Yeah.
Is there a question?
No, sorry, thank
okay.
you.
Councillor Matton.
Thank you. The question's already been asked, really, but I'll ask a question of it. You do understand that as a planning committee, we have to make determinations on the basis of policy and the input that's provided to us by statutory consultees such as the local highways, and we have to take into account what they're saying.
Of course, and all of us do as councillors have to take account of what officers say to us, but there are times where you have to zoom out and look at a situation in the round and see what's happening, and the situation in the round is there is a very dangerous situation with turning vehicles, and there is a very dangerous situation with vehicles coming in and out of that road. So no matter what the nuances are to the specific bits of wording around it, the bottom line is it is dangerous to get in and out of Linton Avenue, and this will make it more dangerous.
I've got a question. I don't think I'll be able to answer it. So next door neighbour is a child minder. Do you know how many cars coming and going?
I'm not actually sure. No, I don't know the answer to that, sorry.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Sam. Anything you want to come back on there, Nathan? Or Ian?
Not at this stage, Chairman, but happy to answer any questions members may have.
Okay. Any questions then? Cecile.
Thank you. Nathan, just one thing. We were told that it's a nursery next to it. Has that, because you didn't mention it, is that a planning, can we find a planning reason? Is it justifiable if we are taken to appeal that due to the nature of the business next door, it would not be inappropriate? Is that a planning reason?
There's no planning history of the next one, number 3, being converted into a childminders, or also a nursery. There's no planning history of it.
So if there is not,
So it's still,
that means
in planning
that
terms, it's still a see-through dwelling.
that means that house didn't have a change of use.
Well, it names the committee.
Again, through you, Chairman, again, operating a childminders from a dwelling, generally speaking, would not result in a material change of use. There's always a question mark about when it becomes a material change of use. I suspect, we're not aware of any formal planning history, so I suspect that the level of operation is such that there isn't judged to be a material change of use. But you've heard from that there is a childminding situation operating next door, but we don't have any formal planning records of that.
So can I come back? So let's suppose it's a small operation and doesn't require a change of use. Is that enough for us to refuse because it's hearsay we don't have?
You're judging this application on its merits.
Yes.
You've heard the concerns raised by local residents and by the local councillor. You've also got the report before you, which sets out the formal consultation responses. I mean, the concerns expressed obviously are genuine concerns about, but they are about existing highway situations, etc. The Highway Authority are simply saying that they don't consider the use of this building for the proposed use would significantly add to that to warrant refusal. And the fallback position is it's a residential dwelling, so
Yeah.
with 4 or 5 bedrooms there, it was occupied by a large family with sort of 5 adults with their cars, etc. I mean, that's a similar situation that wouldn't require the benefit of planning permission. So you've got to come to a judgment. We as officers are making a recommendation based on what we've assessed, but no, the highway issue's been raised.
But Eamon, we had one new piece of information that next door there is a nursery, and our vulnerable children, who might be very nice children and so on, but they might have children who have had traumatic past, and it is that wise to put them next to a nursery that might have been happy children. So that is, but I don't know if it's a planning issue. That's
Again, you're coming on to safeguarding. I don't think safeguarding, whilst it's a consideration, I don't think it falls within the remit of the planning authority. There are other regulations and legislation that govern how these facilities are set up.
It could be sold to a family who've got issues
Yes,
like that anyway.
yes,
so-
yes.
Councillor Frost.
Yeah, thank you. A few questions. Sorry, a few questions. In your sum up, question of Nathan and Eamon, we're told it's that there's going to be a load more cars, but that's fine because people have birthday parties and there's loads of people come to birthday parties. But most people, I mean, the monarch has 2 birthdays a year, doesn't he? But most of us have 1.
It's per other events, isn't it? That's just an example of a personal event.
Well, quite. But the difference is, I thought it was strange to say because, as far as I can tell, if we give permission, it's going to be a birthday party every day, effectively, from a highways perspective.
But the example, every weekend people have visitors and stuff. The example is just the birthday weekend because everyone can kind of understand that's a big event where people will come.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the wrong example to use, but there's visitors within, we all probably know of dwellings where people have more than 1 visitors during the day. In surrounding areas, so I think I'm just to give a clear example just to explain myself.
No, sure. My other question is I'm on Google Earth. And you can see this is 5 Linton Avenue, number 5. And I just wonder if that's definitely the right photograph because here's a number 5 and the garage
it's
is
2022. So
yeah,
but extended in 2023.
But the garage is completely.
Let's have a look.
That's number 5. And the garage is, it's just, the whole thing's completely different. It's like it's the wrong house on there. What's that?
The facade's been changed during the extension. The previously approved extension. So that's obviously dated before that extension.
Well, it's a completely different house. Am I allowed to put the floor? Is that definitely the right?
Yes.
No, because the plumbers haven't had a proper opportunity to actually look. It does seem that from what Nathan is saying, the photograph you're looking at is considerably out of date. It's been superseded by a planning permission which enabled these alterations, which mean that the property looks different to the photograph that you're now looking at.
Well, yeah, the whole house is changing.
Well, yes, it has legitimately. It's pursuant to the planning permission.
And this picture here was taken on the 20th of September. So that's the most up-to-date picture.
All right. Yeah. Does it?
Yeah.
Yes,
on that archway,
Yeah.
there's a number 5 on the left-hand side, isn't it?
Yes.
Long distance, great.
Okay. Peter, do you have any more questions?
No, thank you.
Peter, do you have a question?
My questions are
Then I've got a question.
My questions have kind of been answered, I think. Is it any different to have children who are under the care in a house than it is to have a family with teenagers that might be problematic teenagers? You know, is there any difference in terms of them being able to overlook the rear of a house that's being used as a nursery? I think you've answered that question. There is no difference. Are you aware of the case that was cited whereby another council considered a care home overlooking a nursery as being an issue. You're not aware of that. Now that you're aware of the fact that the house next door is used as a nursery, is that a matter of concern to the planning committee, the planning department of West Northants Council?
I would say
No. Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Councillor Sultan, you've got a question?
I don't know how relevant this is particularly, but I am reminded that as an elected member, I have parental responsibility to look after children. There is a terminology to that, and I can't remember what it is. And these are looked after children. Thank you.
I've got a question, and it's in relation to Kingsthorpe Parish Council's objection over the concentration of care homes. I know we have a concentration of HIMOs, but I've never heard of a concentration of care homes. Is that an actual thing? I've never heard of it.
It's a very good question, Chairman. I'm not aware that, that there's evidence before the council on concentrations, or indeed if there's, as with HIMOs, a supplementary planning guidance or documents that seek to guide such types of applications. I mean, ultimately you judge this application on its particular merits, and you've heard the evidence before you, including the representations of the Parish Council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flavell.
Thank you. It's that one, isn't it? Am I right? Has this applicant already got planning permission for altering the house?
yes.
It has.
The extensions were approved in 2023.
Sorry?
In 2023, the extensions were approved.
Yes, that's what I thought. I just wanted confirmation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any comments? Over to comments. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Question. So, just on the cars front, and apologies, I can now see it. It's massive, the change, but I can see what's happened. So, sorry about that. There's going to be the thing I'm sort of really puzzled about is how you're going to get so many cars there, because okay, so yeah, they've got rid of the hedge, they've provisioned for this new business, but there's going to be times when, according to the Highways Officer, you're going to need about 5 vehicles. Where are they going to go? You can't be parking on pavements. I just don't see that there's space.
Go on street parking.
So you're just taking that would involve taking other
The
people.
dwelling would take that
Sorry,
parking anyway. The dwelling would take that parking. The demand of the parking from that dwelling, as it is a 5-bedroom dwelling, would have that demand anyway. It's the same demand.
I didn't realise the assumption is that everyone, you have a 5-bedroom house. Well, but if every 5-bedroom house has, it's expected to have 5 cars, there's just not enough. There's not enough street space.
No, it's expected to have 3. It was on occasion it might have 5.
Okay.
So that was the birthday relation.
Well,
on occasion.
it sounds like this is going to be approved, but there's going to be a lot of residents that aren't going to be able to park their cars. Yeah, clearly.
Councillor Flavell, is this a comment?
Just general comment.
Yeah, general comments now.
Well, I have to say there are a couple of things bother me about this. We've had some people coming and object, and that's fine. I think I'm rather concerned that the applicant or no one from the applicant has bothered to come and talk to us. That must mean that he or she or they assume that they're just going to get it because they've got some already, and that
Sorry, Councillor, you cannot draw that inference from the applicant.
That's what I think. That's just what I'm
well, that's a very unreasonable inference to actually draw, and I would hope that no other members would actually concur with that.
All right, go back to the beginning. I am concerned that nobody from the applicant has bothered to come.
Okay.
That's my first. And also, I'm concerned that we have no particular details about this care home. I've sat on many of these over the years, and we always have details of how the care home is going to be run and what happens. We have nothing for this. They're just my comments, Chair.
I googled the applicant and had a look, see where they lived and where the business is run from. Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, if I understand correctly, after all those so the house has already been allowed to be transformed to where it is. So now the only thing we can object or not object is the change of use. With what you say to us, and we hear what the objector said, but in planning term, we do not have anything in front of us who allow us. Now, if it doesn't run properly, that is another legislation that will deal with it, but it's not a planning legislation. So I am a bit at lost how we can go against officer advice. So I will not propose to go for, but you know my drift.
Okay, yep, absolutely. Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you, Chair. No, I express, well, share concerns about the safeguarding as well, definitely. We are corporate parents after all, but obviously it's not a planning issue. That's the dilemma we're in, and I'll say the public sitting here tonight probably won't understand the difference between the planning rules and safeguarding rules. It just seems we have the situation with lots of different things, with things like with licensing we've had before, where it's a different set of planning, different set of regulations, and it's difficult to explain to the public that that's it. I do share my concerns, and I don't know whether there's any strength in us saying, well, this legal case that's been presented to us this evening, should we be looking at that to see whether or not that is relevant in this case, and maybe we should be deferring this to look at that and bring it back when we've had a chance to consider it and see whether it makes any difference to our officers' views on things, because obviously clearly they're not aware of it at the moment, and it might have a material consideration for this case.
Yes,
Again, as I understand it, the references have been made to another council, another appeal. We don't know whether or not that decision was appealed, whether or not that appeal was. So you don't have that evidence before you, and as inspectors will often quote at appeals where they're presented with other appeal decisions, that's not before me. I'm determining this application on its merits, and I would have to say that no, yeah, whilst sort of examples are being quoted, this application, you judge it on its merits. And again, you may be persuaded by the information representations you've received tonight, and you're entitled to go against officer advice. We would say that based on the responses we have received to date and set out in the report, that on balance, the planning merits would simply say that there isn't sufficient reasons to warrant refusal. That's not to say that you can't come to a different view. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Just a very quick one, question for planning solicitor. Would what Daniel said be legal grounds for a deferral? Would we be allowed? Would this be a acceptable justification for a deferral if the committee was so minded? And I have no idea where they are or not. To further look into this.
Because
okay.
As Amos explained, we don't know what the other authorities' planning policies were, so we have no idea, you know, of that detail, and it's completely different. You have to judge. You know, you've got your own set of planning policies here in West Northamptonshire that have been explained to you by the officer in the presentation, and that is what you must judge this application on.
It's a very head and heart application, this one, isn't it? Any other comments? No. So the officer's recommendation is to approve the application. Do I have a proposer that we accept the officer's recommendation?
Yeah.
Peter, do I have a seconder? Would it help if I second? Would that move it on a bit? All those in favour? 3 in favour. Those against? 3 against. And abstentions? 1 abstention. I am. I'm afraid I have to go with the officer's recommendation, I'm afraid, and we have to approve this application. But as I said, it's a very head and heart thing, but there is no ground, planning grounds, to refuse the application, sadly. Okay, thank you very much. Okay then, moving on. Oh, Cecile.
In what we were told tonight, could the planning look as if there is something we could strengthen our policy for those type of houses? So if what we were told tonight, that a council refused because there was something next to that house, like a school, could we look in our planning policy? Or that is not the forum?
Just to it's part of the local plan policy.
Yeah, again, you have, members are aware that there's an emerging local plan.
Yes.
As part of that emerging local plan, there are a range of policies which deal with all sorts of types of development, including HMOs. Again, this is a relatively recent sort of phenomenon, a bit like HMOs. It's come along. SPDs have been introduced to respond to that, so it may well be something that the local planning authority needs to look at as part of its policy review. But ultimately, from a DEM point, we deal with each application on its merits as the policy applies at the time of decisions, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Welcome, Harry. We've got some time to finalise. So, moving on to item 5C, which is 106 Person Road. Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. This presentation will largely summarise the contents of the officer's report with regard to the change of use of 106 Purser Road from a dwelling house to a house in multiple occupation for 5 occupants. You will note a late representation from Northampton Town Council has been received, who have objected to the proposal, and this is summarised within the addendum. Next slide. The application site comprises a 2-storey plus basement mid-terrace property located along Purser Road to the northeast of Northampton Town Centre in a predominantly residential area. The existing property comprises a ground floor lounge / dining area, kitchen, shower room and 1 bedroom. There are 3 bedrooms on the first floor with a separate bathroom, and the basement is used for storage. Next slide. The application seeks permission for a change of use to a house in multiple occupation for 5 occupants. The proposal involves internal alterations only, predominantly to enlarge the kitchen area and to provide en-suites for each room. 2 secure cycle parking stalls that provide a total of 6 spaces are proposed within the rear amenity space of the property, along with a bin store. The key issues arising from the application include the principal development, compliance with the Houses in Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning Document, the SPD, impact on the character and appearance of the area, and impact on neighbouring amenity and nature conservation. With regard to area concentration, the use of the application property as a HIMO would equate to a concentration which would not exceed the maximum threshold recommended by the Council's adopted SPD. Only the properties within the 50-metre radius can be considered, and it is considered that there would still be a reasonable mixture of house types within the wider area. Next slide. Next slide, Eamon. And there, that shows the concentration for the HIMOs. With regard to Principle 2 of the SPD, the provision of facilities and amenities, the property is a sufficient size, providing room sizes in accordance with the Council's SPD, and an appropriately sized kitchen, living room and adequate sanitary facilities would be provided. The locations and details of refuse and recycling bin store have been provided. And with regard to Principle 3 of the SPD, flood risk, the application site is within flood zone 1 and is at a low risk of flooding. Next slide. And these slides now will show the internal photos of the existing property. And with regard to Principle 4 of the SPD, parking and local facilities, no on-site parking is provided. The property falls outside of the 400-metre radius of a bus stop as required, as set out in the SPD. However, at 550 metres from the closest bus stops with regular services, the property is considered to be within a sufficient walking distance of public transport. The property is also within the required distance of local facilities, and therefore it is considered difficult to sustain a reason for refusal purely on the grounds of bus stop proximity. The proposed development will produce a demand for 5 parking spaces, which is an increase of 2 spaces when compared to the requirements for the current 4-bedroom property. Secure cycle storage up to 6 cycles has been shown to be provided within the rear amenity space of the property, and details of this have been provided within the application. The proposal involves no external alterations, and it is considered that the use of the HIMO in itself does not have an adverse effect on the character of the area. The proposal is for residential use, and there is no evidence to suggest that the occupiers of a HIMO would create any more impact on amenity when compared with other residential occupiers in the area. The application site is within the buffer zone of the Upper Nene Valley Gravel Pits Special Protection Area. However, in this case, it is considered that the effect of possible recreational visits to the site from future occupants of the HIMO, at a distance from the SPA of over 2 kilometres, would be minimal in comparison to that likely to result from the existing 4-bedroom dwelling, and therefore financial contribution towards the strategic access management and monitoring is not considered to be justified in this case. On balance, the proposed development is considered acceptable without having an undue adverse impact on highway safety, residential amenity or flood risk, and would not result in an over-concentration of similar uses. And therefore, this application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. We have 3 speakers on this, so I'll call on Councillor Bob Purser first. I'd like to come and address the committee.
Thank you.
Just say who you are, who you represent, and
Yes.
then your 3 minutes will start.
Thank you. Bob Purser, I'm councillor for Abington and Phipsville Ward. Obviously, this property lies within Abington Phipsville Ward. It's the Abington Avenue end of Purser Road. Purser Road and Abington Avenue are the 2 most stressed roads, I would say, in Abington and Phipsville Ward. I have regular meetings with residents about fly tipping, where there's a particular site by the URC church that is used for fly tipping. Car crime is a regular issue. I have regular meetings with the police about this, and obviously with the neighbourhood warden. So this is probably the street in Abington Ward that I spend most time dealing with issues about. There's regular drug dealing in the alleyway along the back of the United Reformed Church, and that alleyway stretches across a number of other streets, and so it's really quite a problem for us. These alleyways are open alleyways, they're not gated at all. Car parking is a significant issue, and the highways officer picks that up, that residents drive round and round the block to find car parking spaces. I find incidents of people parking across the corners so that they're almost forming an obstruction on the corner. So that is raised. We've got the issue of recycling boxes in the road. We're still awaiting the rollout of sacks, so when it's windy, the boxes blow down the road and cause litter problems in the street, which again adds to the problems concerned with this. I'm concerned with the HIMOs, as with all HIMOs, about rubbish and recycling and whether there's adequate measures in place. I think there are 2 planning grounds to question the balance the officers have come to. Those are about parking, the impact of parking, and although it's a semi-sustainable location, I would argue that people will go to work at Brack Mills or Moulton Park and need a car to get there. And the second issue is just the impact on the character of the area. I've described the stress this area is under, and that this making this house a HIMO, although there are not others within our constrained area, there are certainly a number further down Purser Road, some of which cause us ongoing problems where the police are called, and there are also houses along Abington Avenue similarly. So to me, it is a difficult decision for the committee to make, because on the balance, the officers are saying one thing, and on balance, I'm arguing the other way.
Thank you, Bob. Didn't the plans show refuge station or something? If you go back to the colour here. Isn't that the storage unit
Sorry,
there?
yeah, the bin store shown with the doors open on the left-hand side, I believe, and then there's a cycle store along the back, and those have been secured. The cycle store has been secured in line with the police's comments.
So my question is, Bob, were you aware of that?
Well, my observation of bin stores is that it usually involves residents having to take rubbish through the house. Residents are usually not very happy about that, and it is an ongoing problem. Where there are HIMOs, there are problems of how rubbish gets disposed of, and are the systems we put in place sufficient to deal with the problems of waste and refuse? You know, and these streets, it is an ongoing issue. It's an ongoing issue.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, Peter?
I'm going to pinch your line, Chair. Were you aware of the fact that Northampton Police were consulted about this and they haven't said anything about the problems that you've mentioned in the area and the possibility of this application, if being approved, adding or contributing to any of the problems that you've talked about? Are you aware that they haven't commented in such a way?
Well, I saw in the report that was so. You know, I just know from my week-to-week contact with the police. I mean, I have kind of 3 or 4 areas that I'm in regular contact with the police about. This is one of them. Purser Road is one of them. So it is a. So why the crime prevention end of the police and the operational end of PCSOs, there perhaps isn't the job. I mean, that's an issue not for this meeting really, but I think we could encourage our beat officers to make their representations to the crime prevention end known, and I will take that away from this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Bob? No? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Bob, hold on, I've got one question.
Go back to those photos. I think the timestamp was mid-afternoon, 3:30. Yeah. In your experience as ward councillor who works there, you know, weekly, that parking scene, it looks obviously fairly built up there. I don't know if there are any others you've got of the road length at 3:30, or did you have any? Did you go back at 6 p.m?
Well, it's even more congested at
yeah, I was just asking the officer, did you go back later on to see 6 p.m. or 9 a.m. traffic, or?
I haven't been. The only visit was
what
me.
we're seeing.
That was
Okay,
it.
fine. So, with that in mind, is that what you see there? Is that seen at 3:30? How does that progress throughout the day as your experience as a ward councillor?
I mean, in the evenings, people do drive round the street, round the block, and it's a series of terrace streets between Abington Avenue and Adnet Road, and people just drive round until they find a parking space.
Okay, and then second question, in your experience as a ward councillor, do existing residents park on the road, blocking in other so are cars in the roads?
Oh, I see. I mean, we do sometimes have incidents. Actually, it's more common on the streets off the Wellingborough Road for there to be a serious problem, you know, requiring the police to be called to fisticuffs, really. But again, it is just a very this concentrated part. You know, these are terrace streets, often with people with 2 or 3 cars per household in houses that were really not designed for any car use. These are sort of 1880s houses, so you know, the automobile was not part of the world.
Not at all. It's the same all around the town in any terrace street, whether it's St James, Farcotton, anywhere. And the house could be owned by a private family with 3 children with all the cars. Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you. We'll call on Pat Dooley next. Oh, I've got you next, Pat.
Oh, right, okay. Hi, I'm Pat Dooley. I'm speaking for this application. My client is with me and he will be talking to you later to provide you some information regarding the use, etc. Really, so I was intending on speaking afterwards, so it's caught me out a little bit. But basically, this property is a very large, extended property with a large bedroom and ensuite already in place at the back of the property. It's 4 bedrooms. That in its own right does attract 3 parking spaces in accordance with the parking standards. However, with the like of it being a 4-bedroom house, if it was a family home, you could quite easily have mum and dad and 3 grown-up children, as it's come out in several of the application comments earlier today. So you could quite easily have 5 vehicles just as a normal family living here. Aside of the parking, though, whilst we're slightly over the distance to the bus stops and everything, what we're talking about here is that if you used Google Earth, man, woman, and you look at the distance of walking to 500 metres, it takes 8 minutes, and to walk 400 metres, it's like 6.5 minutes. So we're not talking about a huge distance further as far as bus stops, but there are several bus stops within the 500 metres. It's not just the one. There's another, there's a couple of others on the Wellingborough Road and on Broadway that are also close by. So, and they take to a variety of places in and around Northampton. But very close by, within 150 metres, you've got supermarkets, you've got the garage with a 24-hour supermarket on Hampton Avenue. So there's already facilities available. We have provided cycle parking with secure cycle shelters, all in compliance with the Crime Prevention Officer's comments. Again, the racecourse and Abington Park, both, and Wellingborough Road, Kingsley Park Shopping Centre, all of these are within 8-minute walk of this property. I consider it to be very sustainable. When it comes to the property itself, all of the rooms are at the top end, exceeding the 10 square metres. There's some, I think, at 11.5 or whatever, which is very, very good. And they've all got ensuite facilities, which is what I try and encourage clients to provide. And my particular client who's here is all for doing that. And you'll see the communal area highlighted in orange there. That should only be 7 square metres to be compliant. That's 25 square metres. I mean, what my client's intentions are to provide a facility here for professional persons and provide high-end accommodation. I really struggle to see what the issues are. What more can we do with a HMO property to make it suitable and avoid councillors having to call everything in? I mean, it is down to management, which, again, my client will explain and answer questions for you all to reassure you. Basically, it's difficult because I'm having to defend these very strong HMO applications every time, and I feel that this one is another good application which hopefully you will support. If there's any questions.
Do just remain as anyone with questions. Oh, Councillor Craven and then Councillor
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Mr Dooley, I just wondered, and I may have missed it, we do have in our papers comments from the police, and they are saying about the security-rated bike storage. Have you raised whatever you had originally up to the level?
If you look on the drawing, I think the officer will confirm it. There is a note on the drawing, which we amended following that comment, to provide that exactly that specification.
What they're asking,
yeah.
And thank you. It's slightly difficult.
No, you won't be able
to
to read
see
it
that.
from here, yeah. But
And
that is
also
clear.
the other thing was about additional fire. If there are going to be individuals in the rooms, have you raised the firing up, the fire security to whatever you've been asked?
I think you'll see on the drawing again, I've provided smoke detection in all the rooms, fully compliant with the fire regulations for this level of property, fire doors, etc. And that would be part of building regulations approval.
Thank you. And the locks for the doors?
Yeah, that's standard again.
All the comments that have been made, you've raised them up.
It is actually a standard comment that comes back from the private housing sector. If you actually read the notes on the drawing, they would have actually seen they were on there anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I don't have that.
Oh no,
that
but on the
paper,
drawing it refers
and it's
to
slightly
those, yeah.
difficult to see.
Yeah,
Actually,
no, that's
so
fine.
that's
yeah.
why I'm asking.
But
you.
yes, I have addressed those
Fine.
points.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Dooley.
Good evening.
I'm very pleased to see the ensuite facilities.
Yeah.
My concern here is recently there was a television programme where women were interviewed and they all said how unsafe they felt walking around the town. And my concern is that the bus stops, which you say are 8 or 10 minutes or whatever away to this property, women are walking around on their own, and some women are facing, especially in that particular area, some very difficult issues around their own personal security. And I don't know what can be done about this. Is there anything that...
Well, in this particular instance, it's along Hampton Avenue, which is a very well lit and a major road through to link up with other roads around Northampton. So it's not like a little side road we're going down. And unfortunately, whilst it shouldn't be the case, you know, in this instance, I think there's plenty of visual surveillance available for this property. You know, it's close to main roads, and you've got like the 24/7 garage on Hampton Avenue as well. So there's a lot of activity going on throughout the night.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dick.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McFadden next. Sorry, Mr. McBain. Sorry, Mr. McBain.
That's me, yeah.
Yes.
Just excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold, so I come across a bit hoarse. And,
Okay. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
as soon as I press this, yeah.
You're on. So
Right.
just stay there. That's it.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself as the owner of this property, and the purpose of me being here tonight is to give some depth and background to myself and my intentions for this scheme. I'm a portfolio landlord, and I'm from Northampton myself. My properties are based exclusively in Northamptonshire. It's my full-time occupation, and I take great pride in offering the highest standard of accommodation to family-let houses and, where appropriate, HMOs. I very much enjoy what I do and have a very good relationship with all my tenants. It has become evident that there is a rising demand in Northampton for the higher standard ensuite HMO rooms for young professionals. These people form an important and integral part of our local community and economy, and are typically health, welfare and care workers, teachers and people from other important professions. They are, in the vast majority of cases, non-car owners and wish to live in a sustainable central location. I think that these people deserve to be offered the best standard of accommodation to enhance their well-being and mental health during a time when prices for either buying or renting their own homes is often out of their reach. Many of my properties are not designated for HMO use, and I think it's important that I highlight that there is a lot of consideration put into the best use of each one of them. I bought this particular property recently, which is currently empty and in need of modernisation. It was, according to the estate agent, and from what seems evident, for many years let as a student house by the previous owner, and the extension to the ground floor was used as a bedroom. I personally therefore think that there will not be any additional impact on the local community than from that which this property has been used for many years. I acknowledge and understand the general concerns that local residents and councillors often have about how these HMO houses are managed, but I feel that a balanced view needs to be taken to explore the merits of the better, well-managed ones and the positive impact that they add to the local community by providing a good home for the people that live in them. I do therefore feel that lots of the concerns raised are very broad brush and in my case have no substance. I manage the whole process with my houses from start to finish, and that includes the renovation to the best standard possible and thereafter in the advertising and selection of suitable tenants. The HMO tenants all undergo a referencing process to establish their credibility, and I meet them all personally to establish their suitability to form part of a harmonious household with the other young adults. We have good communication and systems in place, so I have therefore never had any one of my tenants exhibit any antisocial behaviour or not show the necessary consideration when storing and putting out their rubbish on the collection day. In fact, I do have one in very close proximity to this in Derby Road, so it is literally around the corner. In summary, I would like to thank you for hearing my points and would like to highlight that with your approval, I intend to invest a lot of time and money into developing this house so that it can offer large, comfortable ensuite rooms with a huge and well-designed communal area in a very sustainable location so that well-deserving and hard-working young professionals from the local community can enjoy living there.
Okay, thank you very
Sorry.
much. No, that's okay. Getting finished the sentence. Anybody got any questions for Mr. McBean? Councillor Russell.
Yes, we've met before, Mr. McBean. Thank you for coming here tonight. I think in a previous application you said that you ensure that your tenants have a personal contact available to them if there is an issue or an antisocial problem or if there's a problem within the property itself. Is that still the case?
My tenants?
Yes.
Yeah, all of them have we have a WhatsApp group for every house as well. So if there's ever a problem, in case in point, my house in Derby Road actually this week, there was one of the girls there was saying that the electricity was out upstairs. I was there immediately, and the circuit breaker tripped. We established that it was the washing machine that was tripping. So straight away there was another washing machine ordered. The earliest I could get it there was Thursday. So I'm there talking and helping when necessary. But immediately they contact me.
And when you refer to girls, I'm sure you mean women.
Sorry?
When you refer to girls, I'm sure you mean women.
Sorry, yeah, they are. I say girls because they're typically young professionals. Yeah, they are. Isn't it a question?
Of course they will. And the other question is, do you ever have a situation where you have children living in your properties? And what happens if a tenant becomes pregnant?
Is that...
Sorry, how is that?
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you for the discussion there on sustainability and...
Turn your microphone on, please.
Okay, thank you. You spoke earlier about because there is a concern for me around parking and the build-up of that area and dangerous parking and health and welfare of residents. You did say earlier about the majority of your tenants don't have cars; they like to work in a sustainable way. Here's a question for you: would you condition yourself not to have any tenants in there with cars? So
again, that is not. We can only discuss what's in front of us. And as I said before,
yeah.
You can have a family of 4 people living in that house with 6 cars. You know.
That's not. That wasn't my question though.
Well, what is it?
You're.
Just, Harry, just answer your question,
I have.
please.
I have.
Okay. Thank you very much then. Thank you very much, Mr. McBean.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, any questions back to Oliver?
Yeah. Thank you. Oliver, you touched on the fact that you're the only officer who's visited, and I kind of figured that the highways officers hadn't visited by their response, where they don't say either put their position either way. They just say that we should consider this in respect of safety and safe practices. Committee, we've spoken about this before. This point where highways officers haven't had the chance to visit sites, and this is another site that's got a lot of highways concerns. Question for you, Chair. When we've discussed this previously, you've assured the committee that you take this matter seriously and that you feel strongly that we as a committee should know whether or not highways officers have visited, and if they have, when they visited. This is another situation where we've frankly been let down by highways officers. Am I misunderstanding it?
I read that highways had made a comment.
Yeah, they made a comment, not visit.
They've commented, but can any one of the officers give me a date when the highways officers have visited?
I'm unable to confirm that they have visited or not. Normally they put it on the bottom of their comments. Those comments are available online. I don't remember seeing that. If you want a concrete answer, I need to go and check those comments.
Can I
don't believe they have.
Thank you. I really appreciate your honesty there.
If you want to get a yes or no answer, we would need to get those.
Exactly. No, and I really hang on a second. I really do appreciate the honesty there. Can I propose that we defer this to give highways officers time to visit the site? And can I suggest going forwards we don't consider applications that with highways implications where the highways officers haven't had a chance to visit. It's madness. Absolute madness. That's my proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Russell.
No, I'm waiting for comments.
Questions?
We have policy for HMO. We always complain. Tonight, 2 people who own the HMO, 1 person who owns the HMO, and 1 person who transforms the HMO, came and explained their reasoning behind it. So what more we can do? So are we going to discuss, because highway or not highway, at the moment, you can have the same house with the same number of people, 3 children in 1 bedroom or whatever. So highway we understand it's congested because those houses were built before a car. But now, and I do believe that if you are young, live in Mshemo in town, you do not own a car. Because it's expensive, you might want to save money. So, and when I was in town, I didn't own a car when I was in Paris because you take public transport. So I would like to go with officer advice because for tonight we have a councillor person who did a very passionate ground, but there was not planning reason, and we have two HMO, an HMO owner and the person who is the agent, who spoke quite eloquently of what they want for their HMO. So we should be reassured. And so I will go with officer advice and propose that we accept.
Let's just go around the comments, because Catherine, you had a comment.
I do. I'm sorry if I offended anybody tonight asking about tenants and their future lives, but my concern always when it comes to HIMOs is the safeguarding issues around children, and it is known that children are brought into a HIMO and the mum or the dad or the parents don't actually move out and the baby is there and grows up until it's a toddler possibly. So what I was trying to find out was what happens in that situation if the owner finds himself in that situation where a tenant should really be moving out. Thank you.
Because you've exceeded the legal number of people in the HIMO. If you've got two people moving in together to have a baby, you've got 3 people. Okay, questions? Penny? Oh, sorry, comments.
Comments, yeah. The comment I would like to make is all of us have sat on lots of these HIMOs, and the one comment I would like to make about this one is I think, according to what we've heard, it is going to be done on a high standard. And if that is the case, then I think it is a very welcome addition to the town. None of us like the thought of HIMOs, none of us, with parking and just the influx of people. But I think we've reached the stage that we have to accept that HIMOs are part of life now, whether we want them or whether we don't, they're part of life. And I have to say, I think this one seems to me to be of a very high standard.
Does my proposal come before,
Let's just go around comments first, then come back to the proposals. Peter.
Yes, my comment is that I like this application a lot for the reasons that have been given, and when you do come to proposals, I'd like to be the one to second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Any further comments? Councillor Barrett.
I thought you were going around that way.
I have.
You didn't go in there and then there. Sorry.
No,
no, you didn't. I was here first.
Sorry, Councillor Barrett, but I'm actually chairing this meeting, so I'll have a bit of respect, please. Thank you very much. If you'd like to make your comments, please, and then we can move the meeting on.
So there's 2 aspects which, again, last month you said you were going to write to Highways and you assured the committee you were going to do that. Have you heard back, firstly? That's a comment. I think the non-visits, myself and Councillor Frost have made, the last 4 meetings here have been around that issue and advice without being seen. That area with Councillor Purser's input is a concern for me, and in people's agreeing with this have also noted the amenities and the parking, which has been widespread, which is obviously a concern around the room. My concern is obviously added to with the bus stop issue. It's an overriding concern, is that built up area. I understand what you're saying with regards to a family might do, which is what you're talking about, Councillor Lane. But that's not predicted in the future. We can only judge, as you say, what's in front of us, and we have quite clear guidelines about that in terms of bus stop meterage, parking, in terms of 1 room, 1 space, etc., etc. So I don't think those concerns have been heard particularly well, and they are still concerns of mine, and I would echo what Councillor Frost has said in terms of highways in a built-up area like that really need to have a more active role in it, because again, at the last 4 meetings, it's came back to the amenity, the parking, the local area, the safety. They're all pressing concerns, and they're not going away, are they? So
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Councillor Frost put a proposal on the table that we defer this item. Is there a seconder? All those in agreement? 2. All those against? Okay, so that fails. Councillor Irving-Swift.
I propose that we go with officer.
Councillor Matton?
Thank you. I second that proposal.
Sorry, I meant to ask this before as it's a comment. The cellar, I wasn't sure if I missed
Said
it.
storage.
Okay, but there's no condition to say that people can't sleep in it.
Well, it's on the map as storage, so it's storage. Again, if people are sleeping there, then that's an enforcement issue. Yeah. So we've got a proposal from Councillor Irving-Swift, a second from Councillor Matton. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? And 2 against. So that is approved. Thank you very much. And I close the meeting at 7:20.